Hello and welcome back to 1874. It's time for a match preview show as Aston Villa take on Manchester United in the Premier League on Sunday. No more of this Champions League. We're back onto Premier League now. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, also producing today, which is a very, very big worry, but we'll see how we go with that happening. I'm joined by my good friend, Sky Sports News' David Reed, to look forward to the game, but we'll exchange some pleasantries before we do that. David, how are you?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you. Very well. My voice is just about recovered from the other night.
Yeah, but Jonathan Ridgway is saying in the comments that he can hear Dan sniffing before we went on. I actually think that was Dave. I don't think that was that was me before we came. But I got to say, I think that was Dave. We do have a bit of a rap sheet for Dave Reed before we start, and probably a rap sheet for me as well. Dave Reed, day of the Champions League game against Bayern Munich, didn't tell me he was going to the game until like he was at the game. I didn't like that.
Mid-afternoon, I think it was.
It? Yeah. It was very. Was it a late call to go to the game? Were you always going to the game? You didn't think to mention it to me at any point?
Not necessarily. My plans changed fairly late-ish because I was due to be at my folks' house, obviously in Shirley, but my mum had got the flu, and I didn't want to bring. And she was like, "You don't want to take the germs back down south to Teddy, who's just had his vaccinations this week." So I was a bit thrown into a bit of chaos. So I ended up driving up day of the game and then driving back after the game. So it was all a little bit mad for those 24 hours before, 48 hours before.
And then you got yourself to the front of the fan zone, didn't you?
Do you know what? It was great. I've got to say, I turned up at about 4:45. I did a great. Well, I decided to walk around the ground because I wanted to see some of the murals that were going on. So I did a bit of a tourist trail around the whole kind of circumference of the ground to see what was going on, just to kind of see all the flags and all the murals and stuff, which was great. And then I decided to go to the fan zone about 10:05, meet a mate of mine. And I mean, they didn't start serving till 5, so there was a bit of a 10-minute lull there. But I managed to get myself a shandy pre-game, and it was a really nice atmosphere in there. It was great to see some familiar faces in there, and I thought the setup was really nice. The coach obviously comes in; they had the band on, and it actually didn't feel too busy. But I know you were just outside, so did they stop people coming in at a certain point? Because it didn't feel in the kind of covered area that it was like, oh, you can't move in here.
I don't think they were letting people into the covered area or anything. But it was very bold of you to say, "Yeah, just walk through and meet me." I thought that was
because I couldn't see.
That's how ambitious from you. I felt at the time I got there.
I thought you'd get a red carpet welcome. I thought they'd be ushering you in.
Not at the moment. I'm lucky to be let in at the moment. I'm sure if certain people at the club had their way, I wouldn't be allowed in, and my ticket would get handed. I shouldn't be talking about that. Give them ideas. I've got to give myself some stick as well, because I am sat here in a half and half scarf, and actually did a segment on TalkSport 2 yesterday about this half and half scarf, and just wanted to collect your thoughts on whether I think it's acceptable on this occasion. Do you think a half and half is acceptable?
I think it is absolutely acceptable. But let me go back, because I'm not a fan of half and half scarves. I just think they're dreadful.
Yeah, they're awful.
And do you know what? The half and half scarf didn't even cross my mind in the days leading up to the game or on the way to the game. And then I got out of the car and went for that little walk, and I saw them selling them, and I was like, oh wow, I'd actually buy that. I'm actually thinking of buying that. And I messaged my friend who I was meeting anyway, and I was saying, do I actually consider getting one? And a couple of us, I think one of my friends went to go and get one, but then I think he was quoted 20 quid, and he was like, 20 quid, it's a bit much pre-game.
Yeah. So they were selling him on the streets, weren't they? I didn't do that. I went into the shop because I knew they were selling to get an official one as an official piece of memorabilia from this game. I've since ordered a program because I couldn't get one during the game because they were sold out when I came to get one. But the reason I thought this was okay is because it's Villa's first ever Champions League game. My first ever Premier League game, I got a scarf, and I've still got it. Villa played Ipswich in 1993, so I've still got that scarf. So I thought my first ever Villa Champions League game should get a scarf as well. And I just thought it's a nice memento of the game if we win, and obviously we did win as well. But I also say here, it is official Champions League merchandise as well.
Wow.
So, I felt, all things considered, that the half and half was okay. And they did sell out as well. Like, I got one of the last ones in the shop. Luckily, when I walked in, they just put a fresh batch out, and then I grabbed one and got it. But they did sell out after that. That was the last batch. So overall, I think that it's acceptable and it's an okay purchase as well.
I agree. For this occasion, I don't think for every occasion.
No, agree. I wouldn't definitely league game. Absolutely not. No chance. No. Can't be getting a Villa Man U half and half scarf. You'd never do that, would you? But I think this used to be a thing in Europe as well. Like in European games, I think back in the day, this used to be a bit of a thing when you're playing in Europe. So
I think, I think it was.
Yeah, so I'll take it off now. I was never going to wear it, and I'm obviously
getting too hot.
I'm obviously wearing it, and I said that wasn't going to happen. I said it was just a memento for decoration. But I haven't got anywhere. I need to sort my office out properly. I've got so much memorabilia that's on the floor here and stuff that should be up on the walls around the office. That I need to get that sorted. Anyway, enough of that. That went on for way longer than I expected it to. That segment. Let's talk about Aston Villa against Manchester United. Dave, obviously both teams have played in Europe this week. One of the clubs, Aston Villa, was playing in the Premier competition. Obviously, Manchester United were Europa and made very hard work of last night's game, put themselves into a good position, managed to find themselves behind, and then he probably would have been an acceptable point before the game, I would say, against Porto. But just the way that game went, even our good friend Flex, he has lost his head with Manchester United. Now, I don't know whether you've been listening to what he's been saying in recent days. He's completely lost his head now from blindly backing Erik ten Hag at the start of the season. But it's fair to say Manchester United are an absolute mess at the moment, though.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one way of describing it. I think, pre-game you were saying there that maybe a point is an acceptable result. I just think I don't know what is an acceptable result for Manchester United anymore. I think it all just depends on how they're playing within the game, and I just think it's ironic at the moment that players that Manchester United have consistently tried to sell, like Harry Maguire, is getting them out of jail. And last season it was Scott McTominay, and they finally managed to get rid of him. And now Harry Maguire has popped up with a really important goal at the death in Europe for Manchester United to possibly save the job of the manager. I just think it's ironic that United have been trying to get rid of these guys for years, and they're still there and they're still making important contributions. I mean, it's a credit to those players' professionalism, really, that they kept going and kept putting in the performance for the supporters and for the shirt, which you would expect them to do, but it's not always the case.
No, but what we've learned in recent years, particularly last season, is it doesn't really matter how good Aston Villa Football Club are or how bad Manchester United are, because we simply can't seem to play this fixture. We can't seem to win this fixture in general. 2 home league wins in my life, in my time of going down against Manchester United. And one of them was a couple of years ago in Unai Emery's first game, and one of them was 1995. Form kind of always seems to go out the window for this one, because it's just a game that Villa always seem to make hard work of or seem to find difficult.
Yeah, and I was actually quite pleased when Bruno Fernandes got sent off, because that meant that he was obviously going to miss the game against Villa on Sunday, and now that's been overturned, and he always seems to do well against Villa. So, I was kind of hoping that they would be without Bruno Fernandes for this game, and he's now in. But yeah, it's a game that really over the whole Premier League era that Villa have struggled with, and it's been a real torrid time playing against Manchester United. And I think Unai Emery might have, obviously he won that opening game against Manchester United when he first came in, but I don't think he's won since then. I think that's the poorest record that he's got against an opposition side, Manchester United. Yeah. So, he's obviously not got the greatest of records. But I thought it was interesting after the game against Bayern Munich. I think Morgan Rogers spoke to the media in the mixed zone after the game, and he was saying even in the dressing room after that Bayern Munich game, there was a small celebration, but even Unai Emery then was talking about Manchester United. And I think this game has always been in his mind, even at the start of this week in the pre-match stuff for the Bayern game. He was talking about how exciting it is this week to be playing 2 of the biggest clubs in the world, first Bayern Munich and then on Sunday, Manchester United. You can obviously debate whether United are still in that stature on the field, but certainly a club of that size, it's a game that will be watched around the world. And these are the kind of fixtures that Unai Emery wants to compete in against Erik ten Hag and against Manchester United. So it's good that he's always had an eye on this fixture. And, I think he's going to be absolutely bang up for this.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's maybe this and maybe Wolves, because we've had a bit of a patchy record against Wolves over the recent Premier League years as well and Championship years. I think Manchester United's really the only game I don't look forward to, because it just always seems to go wrong. But kind of was saying this last year, I think if we don't beat them this season, we'll never beat them, will we? Not that we are the better team than them. Like we should beat them, and it's going to be an interesting team selection for Villa this weekend. Obviously, there's a few injuries crept in. Emery's had his press conference. We don't know whether Bailey, Ramsey, and the like are going to be fit for this one, but I think it's unlikely if they've gone off on Wednesday that they're going to be okay for Sunday. Perhaps Bailey on the bench, but I wouldn't want to take any risks with Ramsey because he's suddenly become a very injury-prone player. But when someone else comes out, there's always an opportunity, Dave. And Chris B has asked something that I've been thinking and I've been saying over the last few days. If Ramsey is, do you reckon we'll see Rodgers back on the left and Duran up top with Watkins? That's the way to go for this one. I've got to say, why not? It's always a disaster for us against these anyway. Let's just play chaos up front with Watkins. Let's play 4-4-2. Let's just go for it. Let's just attack and see what happens. Duran can't really do any more to get himself in the team. Watkins is unbelievable, one of the best strikers in Europe. It almost feels like now, with the injuries coming in now, and what Duran did on Wednesday, it's the time to do it for me. 4-4-2 against Manchester United, 2 up top. They're fragile at the moment. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last week that I was expecting Duran and Watkins to play together at some point, but I didn't think it would be this soon. I thought it would be later in the season, but I've got a feeling that it might happen on Sunday from the start. I think on the one hand, you've got the case of, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. John Duran has been so good from the bench. Ollie Watkins has done nothing wrong. And actually, I don't think John Duran scores that goal on Wednesday night if Ollie Watkins hadn't softened up Upamecano for 70 minutes before that. Yeah,
they'd had enough by that point, hadn't they?
Yeah, so, that shows how important Ollie Watkins has been and is in that side. So, on the one hand, it's a kind of thing, well, John Duran has done so well from coming off the bench, and you can see, if there's a few tired minds at Manchester United, and almost, he's getting this aura about him now, John Duran. And when, even when he was warming up on Wednesday night, there was a huge cheer from the Trinity, and it reverberated around the stadium, and all eyes suddenly switched from where the game was going on to find out what John Duran was doing, even during his warm-up. And you feel like he's got this aura now. And do Manchester United players want to turn to the bench if it's a tight game, or even if Villa are 1-0 up and trying to continue to hold on to the game, or even go on to win the game by a bigger margin? Do they want to turn around on 70 minutes and look at the bench and see John Duran warming up and getting ready to come on? I know if you're De Ligt, if you're Martinez or Lindelof or Maguire, you do not want to see that player coming off the bench. So I think that is an argument. But then on the other hand, you're right. I think the injuries do play a factor. And I think I don't think Bailey or Ramsey will make it. So then there's a question of Philogene, I think, did absolutely magnificently the other night, and he will probably start if his legs have recovered in time. And then there's a question mark about who plays down the left-hand side. And, Rodgers has been so good. And I think, his position is that number 10. I think that's where I see him playing in the long term, because he is so good. And he particularly showed it on Wednesday night when he can pick the ball up outside his own penalty area and drag the team up 40, 50 yards just by one of those long dribbly runs that he likes to do. And he's so good at that. I think there is an argument then to switch him out to the left-hand side. It's a position that he knows. He knows exactly what's expected of him from Unai Emery. And then it's a case of playing John Duran from the start. He deserves to play from the start. And I think, it's a perfect time to try them against the Manchester United side, who are fragile, both fragile physically, fragile mentally, and fragile on the bench. I think they are a club that are teetering at the moment. So why not put the pressure on early doors and play John Duran and Ollie Watkins from the start?
Yeah, because your other option is playing Maatsen on the left if the injuries are what we think they might be, which feels a bit. I like Maatsen, obviously. I think it feels a bit defensive for a home game against this Manchester United. For me, Rodgers playing on the left, too dissimilar from him playing as a number 10, because he'll invert and become a second number 10 anyway. So it's not too dissimilar. You're then getting in the channel between Mazraoui and De Ligt kind of both new to the Premier League at the moment as well. So I think it would work from that. And then you've got big John Duran up against Martinez as well in there. I just think it's the game for it. I think it's the game. It works. Duran and Watkins there, and I want to see it. That's actually what I want to see. And then you've mentioned Philogene as well. I think he keeps his place on the right hand side, providing that width from the right hand side. He was playing right, but he had to be. If there was an article on The Athletic which was brilliant about Villa tactically against Bayern Munich today, I don't know whether you've seen it, saying that basically out of possession, Villa usually sit in a 4-4-2, but they actually sat in a 5-3-2 against Bayern. Look, we won't need to do that against Manchester United, but it spoke about the diligent job Philogene did as almost sitting in as part of that back five, and Conser obviously took it across to make a back three, and how many interceptions and tackles he put in. But again against his Manchester United side, this is a good game for him. I think he gained some confidence from that game against Bayern the other night. I don't think he was at his swashbuckling best in terms of when he got the ball. I think he did look a little bit nervous. I thought Philogene, especially at the beginning of the game. But I think it's a perfect time to play him now, and he's got a bit of confidence against this Manchester United team. I think keep him in there, play him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, talk about him taking a bit of confidence. I'd be walking on air. I'd be dancing around like the guy at the end of Saltburn. Given if I'd have played like that against.
Not seen Saltburn, so I don't know what you're referencing here.
Well, yeah, get it on YouTube. He was so good. And Emery talked after the game as well about the kind of plan for the game. And you can talk about tactics and in possession, out of possession, and shapes all you want. But Emery said after the game, the way to win that game, or the way to compete in that game, is to win your duels, and that was the job of the wide players. The wide players are there to win their duels against their opposite winger or opposite fullback, and for Philogene to be able to handle Davis and also help out Ezri Konsa, I thought he was excellent. And yes, on the ball, I'm sure there'll be games where he'll be allowed a bit more freedom. And I think on the ball, he did grow into the game. I think later, as the game wore on, I thought he was excellent at holding the ball at times and managing to either eke out a throw in or work a foul, or even just towards the end of the game, playing the ball just down the line and making sure that, he wasn't playing it into dangerous areas. So I think for him, it'd be fantastic for him to be able to start again on Sunday. I think he deserves it. And, it's going to be a different type of game as well, because, playing Bayern Munich, you are going to be sitting deeper on the edge of your own box, and you are going to be trying to hit them in transition. Against Manchester United, this is not the Manchester United of old, where Villa might have had to sit on the edge of their own box and defend deep and hit on transition like you would do against Bayern Munich. This is a different United side, and Villa can go out there and they'll be expected, and they'll expect of themselves to go out and dominate the football and push them back and play a higher line. I think Emery would have liked to have played a higher line against Bayern Munich, but I think he was pushed a little bit deeper. I think they'll play a lot higher on Sunday. And I think, the fact that Philogene was there and his defensive diligence, I think that helped out Diego Carlos as well on Wednesday. I know we're talking a lot about Wednesday, and it's a preview. But
I mean, I'm going to be talking about it for the rest of my life, though. So
yeah. But I think it helped him because, for instance, in the game against Ipswich, there's more onus on Konsa to be helping out in the middle and final third. Against Bayern Munich, I don't even remember really Konsa crossing the halfway line.
No, it works, doesn't it, for that kind of game?
For that kind of game,
yeah.
He can tuck in and offer that little bit more protection for Diego Carlos. And I think Carlos had a great game. I think he marshalled Harry Kane really well. Brilliant. And I think he's one of those defenders that likes to be like touch tight to the striker. He likes to have his hands on the striker and use his physical presence to kind of move the opposition striker out of the way and off the ball. I think it worked perfectly on Wednesday night, and having Konsa, a little bit closer to him really works for him. Now, whether that changes on Sunday, because the onus is going to be a little bit more on Villa to come forward and break them down. There is an issue when Konsa reaches the final third. He hasn't got the ability on the ball to execute a pass like he tried to do against Ipswich, and then Villa are caught on transition, and Diego Carlos is caught in a 1v1, which is not his strength. So that's a question mark as to what he does at right back and the central defensive partnership as the knock-on for that. But I think certainly Philogene can take so much confidence from that game. I thought he was excellent, and he can really go into this game on Sunday and expect to cause some damage. I think it's 7 of the 8 goals that United have conceded in the Premier League this season have been either crossed or scored from their left back position. So Dalot, as much as he's been good last season, I think he started this season poorly. And I think he has looked vulnerable this year. So I think Philogene will be fancying his chances at getting a good run at him.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one tactically, this, because Villa controlling the game, controlling possession as we usually would like to, like we didn't on Wednesday, but it was by design, of course, almost plays into Manchester United's hands, because they'll want it to be a game where they can catch us in transition. So I wonder whether we'll actually just not be too exuberant in our press again. Maybe we'll let them have the ball, because quite frankly, I don't really know what they are, and I don't think they know what they are either. If you always let them have the ball, you can almost, if you lull them in and then press them at the right time, that's a better way of playing than us trying to control the game and getting caught in transition, because they're not good at many things, Manchester United, but that would probably be the one thing that you would say that they'd hurt us at, and they did last season in that game at Old Trafford for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they want chaos. They thrive off chaos, don't they, Manchester United? And they want a basketball game, and that works to their strength. So, probably wouldn't surprise me if Unai Emery decides to play like a dead game, just kill it, keep the ball. And, if we get a 1-0, we get a 1-0. And that's not me saying,
I'm saying let them have the ball. That we don't press, and the fans would probably get quite agitated with that. I think the fans have learned a lot in Unai Emery's time, but sometimes against Manchester United, I think it's the right thing to press them and get caught out. And I think let them have the ball, let them build up slowly from the back, because they ain't going anywhere. It's in transition where they'll hurt us. That's what I'm saying. I don't know whether I explained myself well the first time. That's what I'm saying. Let them control the tempo of the game. Let them control the football.
Yeah. I mean, that's the question mark, isn't it? Like, I totally get your point, and I understand what you're trying to say there, because United have not looked like a proper team for 2 years. So, why? But then you're thinking about how good Villa are right now. Why would they kind of let the onus be taken by the opposition and kind of play that?
You can still, you do it at the right time, don't you? You trigger presses at the right time. You start moving the ball quicker, Villa, at the right time. Pick your moments, especially there must be a bit of tide. There'll be a bit of tide, as though Manchester United. I was quite encouraged that they played their first choice 11 last night on a Thursday. That's a good thing for Villa, having that extra day's rest, and they've had to put a lot into their game on Thursday, like we did on Wednesday. But you can still attack. I think you just be a bit more clever about when you do it, not because they're a team that you're particularly worried about, because you think they're a brilliant football team, just because I do think transition is the only way they can hurt us.
Yeah, I think control is obviously one of Unai Emery's buzzwords, and he'll be looking for control in this game. I don't know, and United want to be the best transition side in the world. That's a quote from Erik ten Hag, Dan. So but last season was a bit of, well, they just don't look like the best transition side in the world, do they? They want to press really high, but then the back line is probably 10 yards too deep, so they're playing a mid block and a high press, and that just doesn't work. This season, I thought they have started a little bit better in terms of they looked a little bit more compact, certainly in the first couple of games. But people are thinking that United are a kind of top 4 side. They finished 8th last season, so yeah, of course, they're going to get poor results because they're a mid-table team with mid-table players. So, I don't see why United fans are expecting them to be challenging for the top 4, because there's been no evidence that they are going to be a top 4 team last year. And Erik ten Hag can talk about trophies all he wants, and that is a fair objective. But I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe would be expecting a lot more. He'll be expecting them to be challenging for the Premier League, and they've already said we want to win the Premier League by 2028, and that is a long way off right now for Manchester United, because the gap is so big. I think some of the goals they've conceded this season have been so poor. You just look at the Mickey van der Ven run against Tottenham, which nobody engaged with. I think Ugarte, he will be a good player. I think he will play on Sunday. But I think he needs time to get used to the Premier League. I think he looked a little bit like shocked at the intensity and the physicality.
He really did.
So I think he is a player that will improve as time goes on. But is he going to be the answer when they're still allowing opposition sides to run straight through the middle of their midfield? And if Kobbie Mainoo, I think there's a doubt over Kobbie Mainoo now for the weekend. So that means maybe Casemiro comes in, or maybe Christian Eriksen starts in midfield. And you kind of fancy that matchup, whether Onana's fit, possibly Barkley starts in central midfield. But if Onana and Tielemans are there, I think they've been one of the best central midfield partnerships in the Premier League this season. So you'd fancy them in a kind of 1v1 matchup against Manchester United's midfield.
Yeah, Højlund, of course, back for Manchester United. Now he had a couple of good days against Villa last season. Typically, he's back just as Villa's on the horizon. That doesn't surprise me at all. Let's get our either hot take or freezing cold take. Then, Dave Reed, you didn't do the Champions League preview because we did it on the podcast. Me and Greg, my hot take came true, and someone tweeted me immediately after the game to tell me because I just said I kept it quite simple. I just said Villa would win. That was my hot take. Villa would beat Bayern Munich.
That was hot because I was going into the game expecting a defeat. So that was
I fancied this. I went on loads of things in the days leading up to that game, and everything on. I said I think we'll win. I really think we're going to do it, and we did, which made me look very clever, which doesn't happen very often. Have you got a take for today, Dave?
Well, my hot take, we've kind of mentioned it already, but I think Duran and Watkins will start together, and I think both will score.
Ooh, I think you always go too big. You always go too big, Dave.
Go big or go home. I think Watkins and Duran have scored more goals combined than Manchester United have this season. So, they're in fine form. Both are going to start. Can't wait for Martinez up against John Duran. Both are going to get booked. Both might get sent off. It's going to be carnage, and I'm here for it.
Right, it's a good one. It's a good one, Dave. You're not shy with your hot takes or ice freezing cold takes as they normally turn out to be. That's for sure. I'm going to go for Philogene going to play, and he's going to have his breakthrough Premier League game in terms of he's either going to get a goal or an assist in this game. Philogene is going to run at Manchester United. He's going to cause them problems, and we're all going to be talking about him after the game. That's mine. So yeah, there we go. David Stiles said, Dave, too spicy for my taste.
Too spicy.
Yeah, too spicy. You are a spicy guy when it comes to the takes. When you go for a curry, you going spicy for that as well, Dave?
No, not really. I mean, Balti, that's kind of my limit. I don't really go too much spicier than that.
Oh, okay. But you saves it all. Saves it all for his takes. That's what Dave does. It doesn't have room for spice anywhere else in his life other than his takes. Right,
I'm
then,
only spicy with you.
Oh, love it. Right then, thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you to myself for producing. Done an absolutely stupendous job in getting those comments up and interacting with the audience and getting the right screens. But I better make sure I get us off as well. That's probably my biggest concern going into the end of the show. Thank you very much to those that have joined us live, and thank you to those that will go on and watch and listen as well. Do all the things that I bang on every single week about: liking, subscribing, post notifications on, commenting, reviews on Apple Podcasts, which has gone well because a few people have left some very nice reviews. So thank you very much to those that did listen to me and did do that. We will want 500 likes on this video on YouTube. If you don't get us to 500, Villa won't win on Sunday. So make sure you give us 500 likes on this video. Those of you that are going on Sunday, Villa Park, I will see you there. Can't wait to be back at the home of football, but have a good weekend in the lead up to Sunday as well. Enjoy whatever you are doing tonight. And as always, up the Villa.